You have no arguments. You just try to assault me personally. You can try. You're all insane. The truth is that the only reason that this happens to begin with is because women vote for it. They vote for it. They vote blue. They vote left. They vote in the same politicians who get behind all of this stuff. You're the deciding vote.
What have I ever said that could be remotely construed as transphobic or trans-hating or wanting to get rid of trans people? Ever. I challenge you right now. Tell me.
You seem like a lovely person.
I'm sorry that you have to deal with the consequences of your own actions. You think you can change your sex? How can you ever call anybody stupid?
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another video. As you've seen in that introduction, we are going to watch Andrew Wilson absolutely destroy this whole panel. Everybody on this panel except Piers was cooked by Andrew Wilson. So he has a feminist, a trans individual, this person right here in the middle. Yes, that is a biological male. And then also he has a lesbian. So we got a whole panel of wokeness going on here. And he absolutely goes off. So let's not waste any time and get straight into this video.
Well, we have a panel of feminists, covert and otherwise, to debate. The co-founder of Justice for Women and author of Lesbian, Where Are We Now?, Julie Bindel. The trans rights advocate, Stacia Underwood.
All of you!
Daddy, chill.
What the hell is even that?
Sports journalist and political commentator Emily Austin, and the host of The Crucible, Andrew Wilson. Well, welcome to all of you. Julie Bindel, let me start with you with this whole issue of trans athletes in women's sport. I've been talking about this, as you have, for many years, and we've reached a point where the current president of the United States has basically announced a total ban on any trans athletes competing in women's sport, including at the upcoming global events happening in the United States, which is great. But it seems to me utterly astonishing that we have John Oliver, who's a fellow Brit, who is on American television and for 45 minutes seriously trying to argue that people who are born biological males have no advantage over biological females when it comes to sport. How can this still be happening?
It's utterly ludicrous. Either we have women's sports or we don't. Either we recognise that sports are segregated for good reason, or we don't, and we put everybody in together and then see what happens, which is like the bad old days when girls and women wouldn't come forward to compete, or they wouldn't join tournaments. Even if you look at something like poker, which Oliver was joking about, how can this be an issue? How can poker even be discriminatory? There's no strength involved. But the sexist environment of poker tournaments and what men would call joking and teasing and the like put many women off competing. And so let's just see what happens if we then decide that there should be no single-sex sports and that women's sports were ridiculous to start with, because that's what he's arguing.
Yeah. Stacia, look, as I've repeatedly made clear about my own position, which often gets completely misconstrued, as I think does Julie's, as I think does J.K. Rowling and everybody else. My position is that I absolutely respect people who are trans. I respect people who are trans's rights to fairness and equality and safety. I want trans people to have the same fairness, equality and safety that I enjoy, or that my daughter enjoys, for example. So let's be clear about that. Nothing that I'm about to say is what some people try and frame it as transphobic, right? I'm not remotely transphobic. I am fully supportive of trans people's rights to lead the same life as the rest of us. However, and it's a big however, when it erodes, when the battle for trans rights to fairness, equality in particular, but also safety, when that erodes clearly women's rights to fairness and equality and safety, I have a big problem with that. And no place is this more glaring than in the sporting arena, where you see time and again now biological men who identify as trans, who were pretty unsuccessful competing against other biological men, and suddenly they're winning against women or taking Olympic places from women, etc., etc. And I think the UN came up with nearly 900. I mean, John Oliver tried to ridicule this, but nearly 900 medals around the world, I think, in the last year went to trans athletes in women's sport. This cannot be right. It's not fair. It's not equal. As we saw in the Paris Olympics, in the boxing ring, where you had boxers competing who were banned from the World Championships because they had reportedly male chromosomes, and you had women boxers quitting after 40 seconds because they'd never been hit so hard, genuinely fearing they might get killed in the ring. When it comes to this, we are now reaching, to me, not just an unfair and unequal place in this debate, but a dangerous place in this debate. What do you say to that?
I think it's difficult. I think that there's a lot of emphasis being put on trans people in sports specifically. I made it very clear, like, I am not here to spit facts or spew anything in terms of like statistics or anything like that. I have my lived experience as a trans person. I feel that there's so much attention being put on to this specific subject because what you guys really want underlying is the eradication of trans people and them to not be involved in any system.
No, you see there, look, look, Stasia,
that is the dumbest argument I've ever heard in my life.
Right, it's ludicrous. Where have you got that from? Where is anything I have ever said?
To speak out for others.
I'm more so referring to
honestly.
I have seen certain things that you said in other interviews, Piers, with like my friend Blossom and other trans individuals. Yeah. I just feel that the emphasis that is being put
on. And what was
on
transphobic? What have I ever said that could be remotely construed as transphobic or trans-hating or wanting to get rid of trans people? Ever. I challenge you right now. Tell me.
All right, so if you made it this far, that means you enjoy something about this video. Just hit the like button. It really helps the channel out. And of course, if you are brand new, consider hitting subscribe. Let's get back to the video.
I haven't really directed that at you just from sitting here. I more so am just here to say that I feel that the issue that's being pressed is because it's a...
You just directed it at him. What are you talking? You directed it at him.
I think that the issue that is being put on trans athletes is a way to eradicate trans people.
But this is, with respect, this
Piers,
is
can
ridiculous.
I interject for a moment?
In the 1960s and 70s, when feminists that came before me set up women's shelters, rape crisis centres, hospital wards, prison wings for women, recognising that some men, not all, but a sizable minority, are a threat to women because sexual violence and harassment is a threat. We weren't told by men, not all of them were pleased, but largely they understood. We weren't told by men, you're trying to erase and eradicate men. The vast majority of men understood why we needed to do this. All we're doing is saying men, and you can call them trans women if you like, but men have no place in women's prisons, domestic violence shelters, and sports.
Well, wait a second. Hang on.
Okay, Emily, you wanted to... yeah, Andrew, I'm going to come to you. Andrew, I'll come to you one moment. Just let Emily jump in on what you're about to say, I think, to Stasia.
I just think it's so infuriating because ultimately, I know many trans people and I've spoken to them about, playing in women's sports, etc. And the biggest issue they face is that they just want to be accepted. Now, if I was a trans woman and I just wanted to be accepted, I'm going to do the exact opposite of what you're doing. You want to paint all of these labels on you. You want to play identity politics. You want to play the victim, but you want it to be treated as if you're any superior. That's not equality. You receiving special treatment that does not make you equal but makes you superior to others is not looking to be included. It's actually making people detest your cause. It's making people think that you are a moron. And the way that you're trying to represent the trans community as a whole by just denying that there's a threat and being delusional about it is not helping the trans people. You're making people look at you from the outside and say, wow, they are out of touch with reality.
I think that the verbiage that you use in this statement is very clear on where you stand on trans issues. I'm going to go back to my original point. You guys trying to take out trans people from sports is a way to eradicate trans people from public.
But we're not.
But
we're trying to eradicate lunatics like yourself.
Stasia, Stasia, nobody has said that. And this is what happens, if you don't mind me saying, what happens, the way that trans activists let themselves down, in my opinion, and you can respond to this, is that you try and shut down perfectly legitimate, in fact, urgently important debate by saying that anyone who dares to question this is transphobic and wants to get rid of trans people. I don't think anyone so far on this panel has said they want to get rid of trans people or anything like it. And yet you keep saying you people all want to get rid of trans people. Why do you believe that? Where have you got that from? You cite my interviews with some of your friends, but where have I said anything remotely that could be construed as transphobic? I don't get it.
I think the verbiage that was being used, it's very clear you guys stand on all trans issues.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
So what is the solution for the trans people that are playing sports? What's the solution for them? We're just supposed to kick them out all entirely?
Let me give you the solution. Let me give you the solution. The solution's very straightforward. Almost all of them competed against biological men like themselves before, but they did it far less successfully. So you either go back, trans women athletes either compete against their biological sex, or you create an entirely new category for trans athletes. What you don't do is allow them to destroy the integrity of women's sport, which is what is happening. So it's very straightforward how you solve this. I don't want trans people to be banned from playing sport. I just want them to be banned like I did with the dopers when they were cheating in sport. I want them to be banned from utilising an unfair advantage. It's simple as that.
I think
Can I ask her a question? Would you think it's fair if Novak Djokovic identified as a woman and then played Serena Williams in a tennis set? Do you think that that would be fair to Serena Williams, who worked her whole life to become a star tennis player, just to get swept by Novak, who's the #1 men's tennis player? I just want to know if you think that that's fair.
Yeah, I just think that the question is ridiculous because
Why is it ridiculous?
It's not ridiculous at all.
I see how it's trying to be framed. I'm gonna keep going back to my original point. Your guys' excessive attention on wanting to remove trans people from sports and have them play in their biological sex, which makes no sense because even in John Oliver's interview,
or in their own category,
the category that would make sense,
or in their own category.
There's not enough of them to create a category. Like the percentile is so small.
Actually,
so
there actually are an increasingly large number of trans athletes around the world. Actually, that's not true. Andrew, you've been waiting very patiently. Thank you. This seems to me, this whole debate so far highlights the way this debate has been framed now for years, which is that any attempt to question what is obviously grotesquely unfair and unequal and indeed unsafe is branded transphobic, even when there's no evidence to suggest that the people saying it are transphobic.
Well, it's not just that. I mean, basically everybody in this panel is wrong. So to start with, this person says, well, you know, the thing is you just want to erase transgender people altogether, Pierce, and then says, I wasn't saying that, Pierce. I wasn't saying that you want to erase trans people, not you specifically, when clearly that's what you were saying. At least get behind the statements that you're making. The TERF starts out by saying, well, I've been here reinforcing women's rights this entire time, right? And then the TERF says, right on top of that, well, but, you know, poker's very misogynistic. She can't wait to dunk on men. Very first thing she does is dunk on men in order to somehow elevate women, right? You're all insane. The truth is that the only reason that this happens to begin with is because women vote for it. They vote for it. They vote blue. They vote left. They vote in the same politicians who get behind all of this stuff. You're the deciding vote, right? And you have empowered women to do that as much as possible for the political process to do that. All of you are responsible for this. Every last one of you.
Really glad that you're so perfect.
Emily as well?
Trump.
Yeah.
Leave me out of this one. I'm good.
Well, we'll see.
Well, not just what Andrew kept saying, all of you. Do you include Emily, Andrew, or not?
Well, I just assumed it. I just assumed it. But this is the truth. The truth is we begin with these crazy ideas, right? Under patriarchal rule, under men, this would never have happened, right? if you look at how men vote, they vote against this nonsense. And it's fathers who are on the front lines against it. It's women who are trying to transition the children, not men. Give me a case example of where male fathers are trying to transition their kids. It doesn't exist. It's a female-only phenomenon. Literally a female-only phenomenon.
That is insane.
Yeah, show me one. Show me one male father who's fighting in the courts to transition their son to a girl.
Actually,
Nowhere.
I made a
That's a reach.
podcast
I
series
see men on
about this.
TikTok that are diseased.
I interviewed quite a few fathers that are pushing for this. But the point is that this is something that benefits men, and it's men that are the ones that are saying they're women. They are all of a sudden the oppressed, and feminists like me are the oppressor, and that they're too weak and pathetic to fight and play against other men. And what do? They come and beat up on women.
Do you vote left, ma'am?
I don't know what vote left means.
Do you vote for the left-wing party of your nation?
Do you vote for Democrats?
Do you vote for what would be considered the Democrats of your nation?
No, I wouldn't have voted for the Democrats. I would not have voted for the disgrace of that party. And I also wouldn't have voted for Trump. But the point is,
if we look, hang on, let me finish. We'll follow up very quickly.
We live in a different context.
What I'm saying to you is this: it's very simple. If you look at the voting patterns of women in both the UK and the United States, they're usually the deciding vote when it comes to degeneracy. That includes it includes on the trans issue. So here you are. It's the very thing that you push for empowerment of women that is now causing your very problem. You have to now convince women. Men are already there. Men have already said, nope, we don't want this. We never wanted it.
That are claiming
it's garbage.
To be women.
Yeah, apart from the women who are claiming to be men, which now it's almost equalized. Remember that part? Right? This phenomenon, though, is categorically rejected by men and reinforced by women. And TERFs like you did everything that you could possibly do in order to push that. You did everything you could do to push that. And now you get to reap the whirlwind. So I don't care if women in their sports teams are getting their teeth kicked in. I don't care. Reap what you sow. As you sow, so shall you reap. And you get exactly what you deserve.
You seem like a lovely person.
I'm sorry that you have to deal with the consequences of your own actions.
Yeah, so that was absolutely entertaining. Now, it even gets better. So that was the first part of the debate where they were talking about transgenders in women's sports. Now they transition into talking about feminism. So in the first part, you had the feminist and the lesbian in agreement with Andrew for the most part. On this part of the debate, is where things go a little bit more south and everybody is coming after Andrew. Let's get back into the video.
Subject because Andrew made a lot of news on social media with his debate with Tommy Lahren last week after accusing her of being a covert feminist. Let's remind people of that clip which went viral.
Most men are born to be protectors and providers. I can't imagine my dad saying, you know what, to my mom, you know what, I'm not going to be a protector and a provider unless you do this. That's not how real men operate. Real men are protectors and providers, and they marry women who hopefully have some virtue, but also bring a lot to the table as well, that are great mothers, great wives, caretakers of the home. There's nothing wrong with being a traditional wife and mother.
So, Emily, where do you sit? Are you a covert feminist like Tommy? Did you agree with Andrew's assessment?
I'm not a covert feminist. I am very outwardly... You know, the word feminism has been hijacked by, like, the woke left who uses it as an excuse for psychotic women and liberals to scream on the streets, we want equal rights when we have equal rights. I'm more so an empowered woman who encourages other women to, you know, be independent, work hard, chase your dreams. And that doesn't come at the expense of being feminine. It doesn't come at the expense of, now as a feminist, you need to eradicate all men. I don't think everything is so black or white. Listening to that debate, they spoke a bit about gender roles, and here's my take on that. If you're gonna have gender role expectations for your man, that's a personal choice. Emily Austin has high expectations of her man. He has to be working hard, he should be successful, he should, you know, pay attention to how I feel. Like, there should be certain gender roles. He has to provide for the family, not solely, but he should be providing for his family. These are gender roles. As a woman, I learned how to cook, I know how to clean. My grandmother always tells me, my mother tells me, Emily, you're gonna be a good wife, you're gonna be loyal, you're gonna be supportive, you're gonna act like a lady. Now, There's many women who don't want to play into the gender roles, which is fine, but then don't expect your man to go out and become masculine. I think it's equal. Like, set the expectation and then date people who meet your expectation. But in terms of covert feminism, first of all, it's such a silly term. Either you support women or you don't. And I'm not talking about the trans argument right now. That's
not only is
separate
it
one.
not only is it not a silly term, it is true that most of the political pundit women on the right are covert feminists. And I'll just ask you the same exact question I asked
Because the
Tommy.
word feminism
Hang on,
got
let me finish.
hijacked.
Let me finish
That's
the question. Let me finish the question. No, I'm talking about all the way back to first wave feminism. Okay, you are feminists, and I'll explain by asking you the same question. If it is men's duty in society to procure, refine, protect resources, which then women and children are the primary beneficiaries of, which they are. What societal duty, which is equal to that, do women have? What is it?
Women, we're going to have children. Men will never understand the burden of carrying a child.
So you have a duty to reproduce?
I expect women to be able to cook and clean.
Wait, so you have
I
women
believe
have
we
a duty
do.
to reproduce?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
great. So that's
Absolutely
the one
we
duty
do.
that's on par. Great. So that's one duty that's on par with that. I totally agree. Are they? Or is it the case that in every single nation in the
women,
West, we are
assume, are
under
having
reproductive
kids.
rates in every single one of them? In every single
Agreed.
nation in the West, we are lower than where we need to be for reproduction. So it seems that men are fulfilling their social duty and women are not. And the problem with the right is that the right doesn't ever address this, and right-wing females never address this. Instead, they say it's equal. Work and motherhood are equal. They're not equal. Not only are they not equal, but let me give you another example here. As you dive into this, try to understand that what you do is you actually hamstring women by telling women they should go and be girl boss babes and go to college starting in their 20s. They actually destroy their prime reproductive years. They destroy them by having families later. It's the primary cause.
Okay, that's silly. I'm 23.
Hang on, listen.
It's
the primary cause for the reproduction crisis. It's the primary cause of the reproduction crisis in the West, is that with women defer families till they're in their 30s. Why do you think the average age of marriage is 32 in the United States? I think it just got raised to 33. Yes, you're going to have way less kids. Okay, part of girl bossing is when you say career women are right on par with mothers. They're not, and society should be glorifying one, not socially shaming the other, but you shouldn't give them the same elevation you give to mothers and matrons of families. That is pure covert feminism.
Okay, I'm going to answer you with the following. I don't believe in the glorification, and especially I see it amongst Gen Zers, of not having children. I actually think it's disgraceful, and I don't think it's a flex at all to brag about not wanting to repopulate. It just shows me that you're so insecure that you're going to be a bad parent that you're not doing it. On the other hand, I'll ask you a question in return. Would you prefer a child growing up in a damaged family with a mother who clearly wasn't ready to raise a child and raise potentially what could be a deranged child who grows up to be a serial killer or a murderer, or how about this, just a really bad person, rather than wait a few more years until she's ready to have her kid and then raise a mensch? What do you prefer?
Well, so here's what we can see when we break this down. What we see when we break this down is the abuse happens in the public school, where you're 100 times more likely to be essayed than you are if you're in a Catholic church. We see that if it is the case that you're a single mother, you are a single mother, especially by choice, that is usually the selection of stepfather that leads to the abuse of the children. We also can see via the stats that you're completely just insane here. You are actually, if you stay inside of a family where mom and dad don't even like each other, your outcomes are still better than if you, the girl boss, goes, I just don't feel fulfilled. I don't feel fulfilled, and so I need to go and date the neighbor down the road or whatever, right? The truth is that regardless of your fulfillment, children are the duty. The next generation is the duty, and women have a duty to keep the family intact as well. They're responsible for most of the divorces. They file for the most amount of divorces, not because of abuse, but because of irreconcilable differences. And when asked, I don't feel fulfilled. And it's like, that's not how we run a society. It's literally a death sentence for our whole society. Look at what's going on in the UK. It's a death sentence for them.
Okay, let me bring in Stasia, who's been grimacing throughout that. Stasia, why are you so outraged by what he's saying?
I'm not outraged. I just think that you all are fairly stupid. And everything that's being said is ridiculous. And it's just like a comedy show.
You
being
think you
played
can
out by
change your sex? How can you ever call anybody stupid? How can you ever call anybody stupid?
Yeah,
You
she
think
should
you
sit
can
that
change
one
your
out.
sex?
Hey, I'm just sitting back watching the shit show happen. I'm here for it.
All
I mean,
right,
how is that
Julie,
possible?
You started the shit
were
show,
not.
honey.
Well, hang on. I want to get Julie to respond to Andrew.
Oh, I zoned out and I thought I'd woken up in the 1950s in some TARDIS. You can't take him seriously. It's ridiculous.
Oh, you mean in the 1950s? You mean in the 1950s when we had intact families where 95% of women were getting married as virgins, where families weren't being broken up, where crime was extremely low, where you only needed one income to support an entire household, where mental illness was at an all-time low? Like that 1950s? I'm
you
sorry that I
wallow in
make a
your
reference to a
fantasy.
time.
You
how do
wallow
I
are
make
you
a
married?
reference?
Are you
Yeah, I'm
married?
married. How do you make married with many children?
your
How
wife
about you?
happy?
You married with children? Oh, she's ecstatic.
No, I'm 23.
She's
I'm
gonna
a
bring
boss
me-
lady girl, which seems to
Yeah.
be driving you crazy.
Yeah.
Working, making
well, I'm
money,
just pointing
waiting
out
for the right guy to
the
come
only
along.
thing you have no arguments. You just try to assault me personally. You can try, but the truth is that I've reproduced. I am
How
married.
did I assault
do
you?
have
I
the
asked you
life.
if you're married.
No, you didn't. You were making a passive-aggressive
I mean,
feminist
to be fair,
how
to
did
be
I
fair to
assault
about how
Andrew,
my
You
wife
sound
must be
literal.
miserable.
Andrew-
Your wife must be miserable.
to be fair, Andrew is
She might
practicing
be.
what he preaches.
Yeah, so let's just stop it right there. Absolutely entertaining and hilarious. Yeah, that person over there talking about calling people stupid or idiots. I mean, come on, bro. You have no room to talk whatsoever. But you notice that, when Andrew's debating, 9 times out of 10, Andrew is coming with some type of facts, right? It's either backed by statistics, data, science, history, something, right? He has something that backs up what he's saying. And he never really attacks people personally because he knows what he's talking about. He's a good debater. And so whenever they do come after him personally, he's not going to hold back, which is always hilarious to witness. But you notice that when the other panelists didn't have anywhere to go with their arguments and their logic just starts to fall apart, they always attack him personally. Oh, is your wife happy? Or, in the later part of the debate, I didn't include it in this segment, they were attacking him as far as his income and how much money he makes. I mean, they couldn't go anywhere with this guy. Anytime they brought up some brand new topic, Andrew knew what he was talking about. And when they didn't, you noticed it automatically that they didn't know what they were talking about because they always automatically went to attacking him personally. And that's how you know that somebody wins an argument. Once you have somebody attack you as a person, attack your character, your looks, your income, your money, whatever, right? Your lifestyle. And they're not actually arguing the subject at hand or debating the subject at hand, and they're talking about you as a person. That's how you know you won the debate. And this literally happens almost 9 times out of 10 when Andrew is debating somebody. If you ever watched Andrew debate, it's literally a pattern. It happens almost any time that he's debating because he's a really, really, really great debater, and he's very smart. So I mean, it's almost impossible to catch him in a gotcha moment. And I mean, it's almost never that you're going to catch him in a gotcha moment because, one, he'll admit when he doesn't know something, right? That's how you avoid setting yourself up for failure. When you don't know something, just say you don't know it, or you're not, informed well enough on it to have an opinion. And he does that. But whenever he has an opinion that he's well informed on and he's debating them, I mean, people can never, ever win that debate. But anyway, hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. Let's talk about it in the comment section down below. Hit the like button. It really, really helps the channel out. And, of course, if you are brand new, consider hitting subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.